Tonight's episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic is dedicated to former WWF, WWE, and WCW superstar Soul Train Mike Jones. Mike Jones, probably better known to longtime wrestling fans such as myself as Virgil, and was also Vincent during his time in WCW as part of the NWO. Very sad news. Growing up as a wrestling fan, he is one I definitely watched as the bodyguard to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I remember when I was younger and when they finally split him away from Ted DiBiase and turned him babyface, giving him the $1 Million Championship. I remember I was actually a big Virgil fan, and recently, I'm sure most people following his social media with all the Olive Garden stuff like that, and have heard the famous stories about Virgil's famous gimmick table that he would take not only to wrestling shows, but sometimes just different random places, set up the table and sell pictures. Also, most recently, I'd say his appearances as wrestling goes, well, even though he didn't wrestle, but he made appearances for AEW as an honorable member of the Jericho Appreciation Society, as a part of those Jericho Appreciation segments. Unfortunately, it's been talked about, suffered some strokes recently, and I think it's said to start to have dementia as well. Definitely will be missed in the world of pro wrestling. So, once again, tonight's episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic is dedicated to Soul Train Mike Jones, Vincent, Virgil. Rest in peace. .360 Wrestling Fanatic 563. Tonight I'll be talking all about AEW Dynamite, the go-home episode before this Sunday night's AEW Revolution pay-per-view, which was also the final Dynamite appearance of the Icon Sting. Right here, right now, 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Wrestling Fanatics, welcome to this Wednesday night episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Lance Brock here on this Wednesday night. Unfortunately, last episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic had to start with the sad news of the passing of Ole Anderson, and now the passing of Virgil. Mike Jones. Always, that's something that I never like having to start the podcast with. And for both of them, actually, don't want to sound bad or anything, but the last, especially with Ole Anderson, the last several years or so, it's been out there that he has been having health issues, and for Virgil as well, the last maybe year or so, or maybe even a little less than a year, it was out there that his health wasn't doing very good either with the strokes. So, again, not trying to sound bad or anything, but really didn't come as too much of a surprise. But still, very sad couple days for pro wrestling. And us pro wrestling fans definitely lost two greats, Ole Anderson and Virgil. And Tony Schiavone did mention both of them on tonight's Dynamite, which I will be talking about shortly. I saw Tony Schiavone's post on his social media about Ole being a mentor to him, bringing him into Jim Crockett Promotions, similar to the post that Ric Flair made about his passing. And now on to tonight's Dynamite, the go home episode, the final stop before this Sunday night's AEW Revolution pay-per-view, Sting's final match. And tonight AEW Dynamite was live from Huntsville, Alabama at the Von Braun Center. And we start off with Dynamite tonight with one of the number one contenders for the AEW World Championship, Hangman Adam Page. There's been a lot of talk online, all over the internet, about possibly Hangman not being in the AEW World Championship match this Sunday. He came out on a crutch due to the ankle injury. And first, it sounded like the Revolution main event would be possibly changed to a singles match. Said he was not going to compete. And then we see Swerve Strickland along with Prince Nana. And yes, of course, we get the Prince Nana dance. Swerve comes in the ring and shows respect to Hangman. And then we get the music of the AEW World Champion, the Samoan Submission Machine, Samoa Joe. And Swerve, with his attention to Samoa Joe, is attacked by Hangman Adam Page. And the three-way match for the AEW World Championship for Revolution this Sunday is still on. Samoa Joe will be defending against both Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. Not too surprised, though. I wouldn't say, really, I thought that much that they would really be changing the main event. So that is still on. And tonight on Dynamite, kind of a preview for the Sunday trios match. The Blackpool Combat Club, the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, and Claudio Castagnoli take on the AEW Crown, Triple Crown. I always mess up the name of it. I'll get it right one day. Triple Crown. I know I'm saying it wrong. I just can't think of it now. But Eddie Kingston and FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler in a trios match. Like I said, this Sunday the BCC will be in action. Danielson in singles action against Eddie Kingston. Moxley and Claudio taking on FTR. Really good match. And I think this Sunday, I'll just talk more about it on Sunday for Good Morning Wrestling fans when I get my predictions for the Revolution pay-per-view. And next up, the AEW International Championship is on the line. Freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy defending against Nick Wayne. Good match here. Of course, the Patriarchy, Christian Cage, Killswitch, and Mother Wayne, Shayna Wayne, get involved. And then we see Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta get involved. And also Daniel Garcia to have Orange Cassidy's back. He picks up the win, defeating Nick Wayne to retain the International Championship. Women's action, the Sky Blue being accompanied by the AEW TBS champion Julia Hart defeats Chris Statlander along with Willow Nightingale and Stokely halfway in her corner. And the main event of Dynamite this week, we have Lionheart, Chris Jericho, taking on a mentor of his during his time in Mexico, Atlantis Jr. Great main event tonight, in my opinion. I really enjoyed this match. And the video package showing some footage of Jericho's time in CMLL. Yeah, Jericho talking about how Atlantis was a mentor, or Atlantis Jr. was a mentor of his, how he taught him about Lucha Libre and all the famous luchadors he had him work with at the time. And they did a good job of, on commentary too, really putting that over. Jericho gets the win, has him locked in, the Lion Tamer, and Atlantis Sr. throws in the towel, giving Jericho the win. And then after the match, Jericho shows respect to both of them, raising both of their arms in the middle of the ring. And they get a big pop from the crowd there in Alabama. And now on to the final segment on this week's Dynamite before this Sunday's Revolution. And we get the Young Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson out. And right there at ringside, right by the entrance, there's quite a few fans that are wearing Sting masks. And they have these white baseball bats they come out with. And they get in the faces of those fans, kind of poke them with the bats a little bit. And I'm sure most people saw this coming. but one of them, the fans, maybe a planted fan, of course, but, well, of course one was, but it was Darby Allin wearing one of the Sting masks. He jumps the guardrail. 2-on-1 though. The Young Bucks take advantage of the numbers game, attacking Darby Allin in the ring. Then all of a sudden we hear the music of the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Of course, I'm sure everyone remembers just a couple weeks ago on Dynamite, we saw Ric Flair in the back go into the locker room of the Young Bucks, kind of talking about how he would have liked to have had more involvement in Sting's final match. So looked like Ric Flair in cahoots with the Young Bucks. He gets in the ring, picks up one of the bats. Looks like he's gonna possibly hit Darby Allin with that bat. But then, of course, the dirtiest player in the game, finger poke to the eyes, and then gets hit with a low blow. The Young Bucks attack Flair. Then we hear the music of the icon Sting. The Young Bucks get their bats. They go to the floor and then walk up the ramp for a sneak attack. Gonna get Sting right when he comes from the entrance. But then we see something we haven't seen in quite a long time, and Sting makes his way down from the rafters. And then he cleans house of the Young Bucks and Darby Allin too. And then Sting, Darby, and Ric Flair celebrate in the ring as Dynamite goes off the air. I thought this was a really strong episode of Dynamite just before Revolution on pay-per-view this Sunday night. Definitely, I'd say if I already wasn't super excited for Revolution on Sunday, just as I am, I admit it, every AEW pay-per-view I'm excited and looking forward to. But if I wasn't already, I'd say this episode of AEW Dynamite tonight probably would have even got me even more excited for it, believe it or not. And definitely looking forward to it. Like I've said this Sunday night, I definitely do hope to have a new episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic right after Revolution. But as I always say, for the AEW pay-per-views, not sure when they'll be exactly. If you're a regular listener of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, you know that I usually wait after Tony Khan's media scrum press conferences, and sometimes with AEW pay-per-views, they can go pretty late, so sometimes you gotta wait a little bit for them to start. And that is all for tonight's episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Thank you everyone very much for tuning in. I appreciate everyone who listens to any of the 360 Wrestling podcasts. I'm not sure when just yet, but I do plan on bringing back Anything Goes in the future. I'm thinking of some things I want to talk about. I don't want to say just yet because I'm not sure just when yet I'm going to start doing those new episodes, but I definitely plan to. And remember, in the comment section, you can leave your thoughts and your opinions, your ratings on tonight's AEW Dynamite in the comment section, either right here on Spreaker, YouTube, or wherever you listen to 360 Wrestling podcasts at. Also, your predictions. Let me know all your picks for this Sunday's Revolution, or just talk anything pro wrestling, anything you want to say, any kind of discussion, just as long as it is related to pro wrestling. And the best way to keep up with 360 Wrestling Podcast is on X. Anytime there is a new episode right here on Spreaker, it gets posted to X pretty much right after the podcast is over. Also on Facebook, even though it's not active, and I'm not sure when it will be active again. Maybe one day, who knows, but I'll keep you posted just in case. Also, Instagram and Threads, 360 Wrestling Podcasts. So if you have an Instagram or a Threads, feel free to go there and check out 360 Wrestling Podcasts. I'll appreciate you if you follow. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. We'll be back tomorrow morning for the Thursday episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans. Once again, another unfortunate loss in the world of pro wrestling. Rest in peace, Virgil. I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.